right, everybody, welcome back. We are on our fourth competitor of the United States Barista Championship here in 2026.
Time. In my most recent trip to Honduras, I was having an inspiring conversation with my good friend, Ben Paz. And he was expressing with me that his work and specialty isn't meaningful for just the quality in the cup, but all the risks and the challenges that it takes to produce world-class coffee. Now, this conversation reminded me of this really beautiful quote that really resonated with me. It was by a landscape photographer named Sapna Reddy, and she said, "We can't appreciate the miracle of a sunrise without waiting in the darkness." I think we could all agree that this can mean many things, but judges, today, I invite you to experience what this means to me through the coffee I'm serving you. Now, this coffee comes from Ben award-winning farm La Salsa in the east-facing sunrise of Santa Barbara, Honduras, where he has a fruitful production of green tip geisha at 1,700 meters above sea level. And today, I'm so honored to share with you his very first production of his natural geisha, but that was dried in a dark room. And while this first experiment carried a lot of uncertainty, what happened in this darkroom environment was nothing short of miraculous. This darkroom environment is a humble shipping container customized with dehumidifiers, fans, and an air conditioning unit to regulate the airflow, humidity, and the temperature. Now this slows down the drying process to 40 days, maximizing the contact between mucilage and parchment. And while this slow, intentional drying method helped slow down the acidic fermentation, it also helped concentrate the tropical and floral esters coming from that mucilage as the moisture slowly escapes. The result was a clarity and cleanliness that reminds me of my favorite expressions of Ben fully washed geisha, but with more depth and complexity. Now, while I was on that trip, I was fortunate enough to meet Professor Flavio Borin from Brazil, one of our industry's leading researchers in post-harvest production. And what I learned from him is that even after harvest, coffee is still biologically active, and that drying can either preserve or even damage the cellular integrity of the seed. He says that natural processed coffees in particular are more sensitive to thermal damage, and that drying at too high of a temperature can result in ruptured cell walls, leading to inconsistent quality. What's remarkable is that the purposeful, intentional, temperature-controlled environment at 20 degrees Celsius in the dark room help preserve cellular integrity, and also varietal characteristics about geisha that we've come to love, such as florality, citrus, and stone fruit. To articulate this in the cup, I'm brewing your espressos at 20 grams in, 43 grams out, in roughly 20 seconds. In the cup, this recipe will articulate and express tangerine, complex cherry like Rainier and red cherry. The finishes with black tea in the finish. The tactile is a medium weight, beautifully soft and round texture, and it's pleasantly drying in the finish. Now, judges, as I hand you your espressos, if you can evaluate the crema, but wait to taste. Today, I'm serving your espressos in Icosa Brewhouse's Avensi Wave cups. And as you'll see by the shape of the sidewalls, is that it has ridges to allow you to swirl to incorporate, as opposed to stirring with a spoon, but more so to enhance the aromatic experience in the cup. So once I instruct you to enjoy, if you can bring the cup close to your nose to take in the white blossom aromas coming from varietal characteristics that were preserved in the dark room. And then swirl for 3 seconds just to fully incorporate everything. What's beautiful is that darkness helped preserve the promise of variety and terroir, but transformed it with depth and complexity. Judges, from Ben and myself, please enjoy. Thank you. Thank you. Judges, just a few more moments to enjoy those espressos, and then we'll move on to the milk course. Okay. For the milk course, let's write down some tasting notes. You're going to experience subtle apricot jam, caramel, and butter cookie. Truly delicious. Now, what all this darkness means to Ben Amin is that he's embracing the darkness and uncertainty and risk of his own coffees, so that what he learns from this darkroom environment can eventually add value to his neighbors of producers who are on the same mountain. Now, what also emerged from this darkroom environment was the new presence of a mystery mold that originally presented a concern. But Ben Amin took the risk to process it to see how it'll impact the cup. And after talking to Professor Flavio, he revealed to us that aromatically what was happening in the cup was the presence of beneficial fungal activity that truly deepened the sweetness and fruity depth of Ben Amin's coffee to levels that I've never experienced. It was this fungus that metabolized the enzymes within both pulp and mucilage, truly reminding me of what winemakers refer to as a noble rock in dessert wine production. And to express this in the cup, I brewed your espressos at 21 grams in, 40 grams out to boost that fruity depth and also the coffee's presence in milk. And to complement that, I've evaporated equal parts lactose-free and rice milk in another temperature-controlled environment, also known as a Thermomix food processor. Enjoy, Sam. Thank you. And over a period of 90 minutes, it efficiently evaporates 30% of the water content in a heated environment of 170 degrees Fahrenheit, concentrating the natural sugars of glucose. Cheers, enjoy. Coming from the enzymatic reaction of breaking down lactose or even starches into simpler sugars, much like what we experience with Ben Amin's geisha waiting in the dark. What I find most inspiring, enjoy, good to see you, is that Ben Amin, he doesn't just embrace the darkness and uncertainty just because challenge alone is the goal. He does it with purpose and intention to serve the people he calls friends. Thank you for waiting. It's good to see you again. Please enjoy. Cheers. Judges, shall we? Thank you. What all this darkness means to Ben Amin and myself is the joy and excitement of something new. Not only did the darkness preserve familiar flavors of terroir and variety, but it was also a transformation of the classic geisha profile that made it new. Much like the transformation from darkness to sunrise. And that's exactly what I wanted to resemble in the signature beverage course, by using ingredients that resemble both the process and the impact of the process. Now to begin, I have 80 milliliters of the espressos, brewed the same recipe as your milk course. Then, I hyper chilled it to bring you a chilled beverage experience. Thank you. To that, to resemble the process, I have 115 milliliters of a freeze-clarified punch. And to begin, I chose 3 grams hibiscus and 1 gram timu peppercorns to resemble the aromatic complexity coming from the pulp. To that, I've added 200 grams pineapple, 200 grams soursop, otherwise known as guanabana, and 200 grams cacao fruit. These are common tropical fruits found around Benjamin's farm, but more so, it resembles the tropicality and florality coming from that mucilage. Now, what I've done with this mixture is I blended it. I froze it, and I allowed it to thaw through another darkroom temperature-controlled environment. I call it the studio apartment refrigerator. Now, I allowed it to thaw through a paper filter to clarify the liquid, but leaving behind 50% of the water content concentrates the aromatic properties of these ingredients. In combination with this espresso, you're going to taste lime sherbet and peach. For the next ingredient, to resemble the impact of the process where we got complexity, clarity, depth, and sweetness, I've conceptualized 30 milliliters of a non-alcoholic dessert wine. So, adding 30 milliliters of that. Now the base of it is 20 milliliters of Cali Verjus. Cali comes from my terroir in Northern California, where there's a beautiful selection of Chardonnay grapes growing along the Pacific coast. Now Cali, they press the grapes into a juice to concentrate the malic and tartaric acidity. But what's beautiful about the Chardonnay variety is it expresses complexity, but also a rounded acidity, so that's not overly sharp in your beverage. To that, I've added 7 grams elderflower cordial by Darbo, who has a consistent recipe of elderflowers, simple syrup, and citric acid. The florality, the subtle lift of acidity is going to bring you the note of lychee and white grapefruit. Finally, thank you, I dissolve 5 grams fructose in 5 grams polydextrose to fortify that natural sweetness. Fructose is the natural sweetness that we find in fruit, and polydextrose is glucose broken down into more simple molecules and sugars. So not only are we going to get a creamier texture, but also a more delicate sweetness, Finally, I'm blending to incorporate. But while this goes, you can write down some tasting notes if you missed it the first time. You're going to experience peach, lime sherbet, lychee, and white grapefruit. Now, as I hand you your beverage, judges, if you can wait till I call time to enjoy. But once I do, just give it a gentle swirl and enjoy in 3 sips. What I find most beautiful, though, is that after competing with Benjamin's geisha for nearly 4 years, the darkness, it didn't change or fix the coffee, it transformed it. With careful attention to detail to the darkroom environment, with intention and purpose, the coffee became deeper with a much more profound layer of flavor complexity that made it new. Oftentimes, darkness resembles our fear of uncertainty in times of challenge and hardship. But it's how you show up to it in love that transforms you. That's exactly how Benjamin shows up in times of darkness and uncertainty. Because he's sustained by the hope and real community, not just of the producers that he serves in the Santa Barbara Mountains, but of baristas and roasters around the world that he calls friends. Judges, it's that same story of hope that sustains me as a barista, and it moves me. And I could say it's made a positive difference in my life. To do what I do and show up to serve people, not just coffee. I choose to serve my community in faith, knowing that the sun will rise again to showcase its beauty and its hope. Judges, that's happening in my life. It's absolutely happening in yours as well. We just have to wait in darkness first. And I'm right there with you. Time.
Let's hear it for Jason!